Welcome back to another class, guys. I know that they have announced that the school year is over, but that's okay because we still need to get through this novel and we still need to get some of those grades. So please do the assignments to build up your grades going into next year because this will be your last set of grades until second form. Now, while focusing on Father, Son, Son Johnson, we're going to be looking at chapter 5 and 6, and we're going to be looking at characters. Now, the reason why it's important to look at characters is that we want to look on how the characters affect each other, right? Now, I know I've said this before, but I want us not only to see how they affect each other, but the importance that each character is starting to have in each other's lives. When we are introduced to characters, we kind of see how personalities might impact. But now, going further down into the book, we're looking at the roles that the characters play in each other's lives, whether it be positively or negatively. It's not a simple family situation in Father Son Son Johnson. We have to look on how one character affects the other, how it affects him emotionally, how it affects him maybe even financially. Jake shows up, and obviously his appearance has a financial impact on Son Son Johnson along with an emotional impact. So let us take a look at the summaries for chapter 5 and 6, and then after we do those summaries, I want to look at some quotes that I believe highlight characters in these two chapters. In chapter 5, Rami and Hilchas go to the market to sell. Rami watches a man try to sell a mangy horse, and he tries to sell his goats in the same fashion by auctioning them. He drew a crowd and sold his goats, but murmurs went about that Son Son Johnson's son was selling goats in the market. Son Son was glad they were successful at the market, and Rami gives his father money with to buy a drink with some of the money that he got from selling the goats. Son Son takes the money, and Donnery and Rami sit by their stall talking. He tells her that he has freedom with his father, where he is not bothered by his mother's social standards. He explains the difference between his parents. Then his mother, siblings, Jake, and the chauffeur came along. Debbie is both appalled and livid to see her Rami selling in the market. Debbie was so upset that she threatened to take Son Son to court. Son Son arrives, and Debbie and the children reject his hand of friendship. Rami and Son Son made a lot of money from their day at the market. Son Son did not go home, but went to town to drink, while Rami thinks about his mother's involvement with Jake and his father's seeming involvement with Mrs. Hilcher. When Son Son gets back, he and Rami have a talk about Debbie, as well as whether or not Rami should go live with her. Rami refuses. About a month later, they hear that Debbie and Jake are getting married. Rami did not attend the wedding, but watched it from a big tamarind tree that's near the church. Rami went home after the proceedings to find an unexpectedly happy Son Son. Sorry about some of those bumps. There are a few grammatical errors in these songs. Now, what we notice obviously is that the characters are impacting each other in many ways. Ma kind of is having a negative impact on Rami and Son Son, but we have to kind of look and see how the characters grow from this. Just like how the chapter was called Growth, these two chapters have some interesting names as well. Now, chapter 5 is called To Market to Market. In the last class, I kind of talked about how this chapter's title has an action to it, to market, not just market. It's speaking about not just the location, but the action that they have to go to market. Now, the first quote that we're going to look on, right? Here, Rami is kind of talking about Son Son and kind of describing him a little bit, right? You see, father is quite an earthy type. He's a short sleeve, not a long sleeve man. Ma is a gown type. Father is loose in his ways, but Ma is correct. Father is often a spendthrift. Ma never gets that way. Do you know that she wanted him to run for parochial elections and all that? Father, not father. Yet she meant good, but you can't push a man into something that he doesn't like. Ma liked the social world, having friends who like to drink those 4 o'clock teas, whereas father always bolted. You see what I'm getting at? Two people like that are capable to love each other, just as how dry peas love love the fire, but they can't exist in the same pod. One pushes, the other bolts. Now, I really like that quote because what he's doing is kind of breaking down the characters for us. Son Johnson is one that gets into the dirt. He's a farmer. He does the dirty work. While Jake is obviously the long sleeve type, which apparently Ma likes. Ma wants to do some of these proper things, some of these nice things. Son not really into that. Son wants to really get in the field, speak to the people, get in the dirt. Ma likes to wear nice clothes, so dirt and nice clothes don't go together. And when he does this type of description, we get a better understanding of who Sun is and why he and Ma pretty much were bound to be separated. But the problem with Sun is that he loves to enjoy life. He will spend things mostly because he's probably not attached to items. So when you have all this money and you don't really have items to buy, you know that you become a little bit spendthrift. While Ma really wants nice things, so she wants to hold the money so she can buy the nice things. And this is a good look into the relationship, not just the characters, but the relationship that Ma and Sun had that didn't work. The next quote that we're looking at is still in chapter 5. Father nonchalantly turned to Arlene with outstretched hands, but my sister walked off and around Ma, and so did Brad when it was his time to be received by Father. You could see that despite his setback, Father was in jocund mood. His eyes were dancing, not darting. He straightened up from having reached for my brother and sister. Well, was all he said. Merton, Ma said, stamping her foot. Now, this is one of those quotes where it's very obvious that there's something changing. There's some effect that is happening. But it's funny. It says Father was in jocund mood, right? So Father was in a very cheerful mood, and it's basically even his kids rejecting him couldn't take him out of that mood. And that was very interesting because you would think that something like this would really, really affect Sun negatively, but he stepped out of that. You understand? Cool. Now, what we also have to look at is the fact that so now that we know that he's in a happy mood, despite that, we see that he has grown from the situation, that he's gotten better, right? He's gotten stronger, and that is really good character development. The next quote that we're looking at is in chapter 6, A Wedding So Contrary. In the last last video, I spoke about how the title of that was very interesting. Now, this is Rami now. I didn't go to the wedding. How could I have? Wasn't it the crowning insult to Father and me? I didn't go, but I saw it. So Rami is showing that he takes offense to this wedding, right? Maybe even more than Sun has taken offense. But what he's highlighting is the fact that he is emotionally affected by that. And we get to learn more. We get to learn more about Rami. We get to see what bothers Rami, what makes him tick, what affects him. You know what I mean? And it's a very, very, very interesting moment. The last quote that we're going to look on is one with Sun. Father surprised me. Instead of moping, instead of perhaps rippling, he was sitting alone in our tiny drawing room and playing a game of checkers all by himself. Of course, there was no serious game here, no competition, but the manner in which he gobbled up the men on the opposite side of the board frightened me and sobered me, finally pleased me. So, when we look on the growth of things or the movement of things, Jake does something that should really affect him very negatively. But what does Sun do? He's happy, he's focused, and he moves forward. We can even draw on other characters and say, maybe losing Arlene, Brad, and Ma hurt at first, but through the Hilchas and Rami, he has found his own strength. So he can't dwell on the negative, and he's looking to the future. And this is how the character development comes about. We see conflicts, we see things that should be affecting him. And what is his response? His response is strength, right? What I want you guys to do, our next class, we're going to focus on themes. So what I actually want you guys to do is to look on this character development and think about how would you be affected if something like this happened to you, right? And then I want you to look at what could Sun Sun have done differently in the past that would have maybe put him in a better place than he's now? Or do you think that it's these struggles that has carried him here? See you in next class. Big up yourself.